I got a feeling that you could be feeling a whole lot better than you feel today. You say you got a problem, well that's no problem. It's super easy not to feel that way. When you start to get confused because of thoughts in your head, don't feel those feelings. Hold them in instead.
Hello.
Turn it off.
Hi there. Welcome to the second week of DLI Humanities virtual experience. I'm Mr. Sacco, and I am looking forward to another great week together. And I am so excited to unveil and get rolling our emotion tutorial. And I wanted to play for you the song Turn It Off from the musical, very satirical musical, Book of Mormon, because I think it emphasizes and articulates some of the push and pull factors when it comes to internal emotions, how they are exuded. This song alone articulates that you can turn off sadness, which I hope you may find is not true, and that suppression in this song is not a good thing. On a separate note, I wanted to commend our students. I think we were challenged last week, getting off the ground. Building the airplane as it's trying to get off the ground, right? And so you were very patient with me. I appreciate that. I also emailed the majority of you this weekend, the students specifically, to make sure that the work that was due has come in so that I can start to grade it a little bit. And then, thinking about other things like using Flipgrid for the first time. I know that was the first time I had used Flipgrid as a teacher. So I was pleased to see the diligence, I guess also the vulnerability with something like that, this was the first time maybe you've recorded yourself in front of your peers. I know we did something like it in the fall, but that was more for you to see. This was for your friends in the class to see. So very different. Enough about reflecting though. I will transition us to our weekly overview here. So you should be able to see this document as soon as I'm done with this screencastify. Unfortunately, and fortunately, however you want to see it, we do have class on Tuesday and Friday this week. I have tried to alter a bit of our schedule so that any date or any day of the week here is in red, and most of our assignments corresponding to a particular date is in red. I may change that around. I know that color coding is important. So this week, again, we're going to roll out the emotions tutorial bit by bit. So this one, you're going to get a Google form along with this Screencastify video. And the Google form looks like this. The intention here is to, and it's got to love Inside Out, the intention here is to pick the three on the initial intake here, the three emotions that you think most influence human behavior. So the idea being we can capture some of this, you then put in the why do you feel that? Why do you think the order is the way it is? So like your number one should be the most influential emotion. From there, we're going to go back over here. I've tried to give you about a week's worth of podcasts, one TED Talk, and one crash course psychology video to watch, all three of which are going to be due as a 5 C's, okay? So as you do this, make sure to do the 5 C's, okay? It'll bounce you out to a template, this one, and I've also included the videos here. My purpose is to get the conversation started for next week we're going to do some preliminary intake Tuesday in breakout meetings. But next Tuesday, using these, we will have a synchronous conversation, I believe, to talk through kind of the different, connections, and I put extensions to the thinking that we will have this week. So furthering and making sure that we are diving in an appropriate manner. Now, part of that for me, and this document, hey, we also have a couple of students on this document, which is great. So a part of this too is the enrichment side of this is totally for you. So the first thing that I wanted you to listen to was this Emotions podcast by Invisibilia. They came out with a second version of the same sort of podcast. It was kind of an extension of their own. So that's an opportunity, right? That all of these additional resources down here are ways in which you can start to frame and contextualize. Dan Ariely, he's a professor from Duke. He used to work in a different place, MIT. Now he works at Duke. But he's a very fascinating economic psychologist. And he's got 2 or 3 TED Talks that are superb. Lisa Feldman Barrett, you should pay attention to this name right here. She pops up in the Emotions. She's a guest speaker in the Emotions Invisibilia podcast, as well as Tiffany Wyatt Smith references her in her TED Talk. And maybe even Hank Green references her. So she is a world-renowned psychologist when it comes to emotions. I didn't include it for that reason. She does think about emotions differently. A lot of what is in her TED Talk does come out in the Invisibilia podcast, but I wanted to provide you the opportunity to see what she had said in on the TED stage. All right. Very good. Now, as you can scroll through here, right? So as you continue to think about the 2 to 3 emotions that most drive humanity and influence our behavior, I've tried to provide some, right, jumping off points, places I've seen, right? Here's Dan Ariely, Our Buggy Moral Code, right? Brene Brown is world-renowned psychologist. She's got oodles of books right now, probably 5 or 6. And one of her first kind of TED Talks was all about shame and how shame shapes us. So, like, there is no right or wrong answer. I hope that you understand that. That's part of what a tutorial is all about. But the way you approach this and the directions you go with this are totally up to you, right? Through conversation, obviously through, looking back, right? So then I've kind of gone all the way down here. Step 5, let's start to curate from your own studies, right? We've listened to a lot of podcasts this year. We've seen a lot of videos this year. There are other classes at Worcester School. Who would have thought? Maybe summer classes that you've taken. You can use those tools, put them in. I haven't yet kind of structured this yet, but we're starting with the 5 C's, right? My goal is to start to think about how we take our research and turn it into a paper, presentation. That's something that we're going to be talking about in the next week. All right. So next, probably Tuesday into Thursday, I want to start to engage you in the conversation of what should we do with this, right? How do we represent our beliefs, right? So yes, we can slap our name at the top of a paper and maybe do something creative, right? Like poetry, music. We could maybe even do something in the form of artwork. So I'm open to a lot of different suggestions. All right, I'm coming back over to our assignments today. So again, I provided the opportunities for enrichment. Additionally, and this is kind of a weekly assignment, right? The recording history journal, that's going to be due again this Thursday night at 11:59. That's going to continue to happen once a week. Some version, whatever you started with, it doesn't have to continue that way. If you want to start a podcast, start a podcast. It's totally on you. But it is something that I want us to continue to do because new stuff is coming out all the time. I did get some questions, or at least one question about whether or not it is, for us to be doing the research as students and to be recording what is happening, or to be recording kind of our own experience through this crisis. And I didn't really articulate it, I guess, that well. Either or, both, right? If something breaking happens this week and you become focused, that takes your attention, write about it, talk about it. Whatever you're doing, that might be the focus of that week. You're not a doctor that I know of yet. So, to understand everything about the research and the epidemiology, you do the best you can, right? Like if you don't understand stuff, maybe ask some questions. There's a lot of freedom and opportunity in the recording history journal, and that's why I think it again replaced the routine question reflections, which were very open. All right. Without further ado, I kind of wanted to end today. So, in our emotion tutorial, you're actually going to see one of my favorite poets, Khalil Gibran. He wrote The Prophet. And so, thinking about this, I wanted to start with the song on this little screencast by, and I wanted to end with this poem. And maybe it'll get you thinking, maybe it won't. Maybe you don't get this far in the video, who knows? But so I'm going to read to you, my children, and I'm just going to read the one titled On Joy and Sorrow, because I think it does a good job opening up the conversation. So here we go. Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the selfsame well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say, joy is greater than sorrow, and others will say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. Verily, you are suspended like scales between your sorrow and your joy. Only when you are empty are you at standstill and balanced. When the treasure keeper lifts you to weigh his gold and his silver, needs must your joy or your sorrow rise or fall. So that's Khalil Gibran, philosopher, poet, artist. He has a lot of great artwork. But in thinking about his poem, and I do pick that book up all the time in my own life when I need an answer. In the Flipgrid assignment, we were getting some of the emotions felt with our social distancing, not returning to school. And maybe through this emotion tutorial, we might better understand ourselves as humans, as individuals, and brighter futures are ahead. All right. I know that it's only week 2, and we've got about 6 to 8 weeks, depending. Obviously, we will adapt accordingly. But I'm so proud of you all. I really do commend you on your effort, and I'm looking forward to another great week, even though we only have one day together. So, miss y'all.